I could hardly process what I was seeing when the brazen stranger strode up to our table. Without a moment's pause, he seized my wife's hand, my unfaithful wife, and with a smug twist of his lips said, "Why waste time with this weakling? Come dance with me first, and I'll show you what a real man feels like." I stayed perfectly still, forcing myself to keep calm, then moved in one swift, controlled motion. The sharp, sickening crack of bones split the air, followed by his cry of pain as he collapsed to the floor. The restaurant was an upscale haven of polished elegance, soft amber lighting reflecting off dark mahogany tables, the faint melody of a piano weaving through the room. It was the kind of place I once delighted in, a space for closing lucrative deals or celebrating milestones. Tonight, it felt more like a velvet-lined cage. Across from me sat Amal, her beauty as striking as ever. Her dark hair was artfully styled, her lips the same deep shade as the fitted gown clinging to her figure. Yet her eyes, cold, detached, told a story no one else could see. We had been married for years, but the last 6 months had shifted everything. Late nights at the firm, cryptic texts, and sudden disappearances had carved an unbridgeable gap between us. I'd hoped this evening might mend it. Instead, I was watching her slip further away, sip by sip, glass by glass. Then a shadow stretched across our table. I looked up to find a man in his mid-30s, tall, broad-shouldered, oozing self-assurance. His tailored suit hung flawlessly on his frame, but the arrogance in his stance was what stood out most. His piercing blue eyes went straight to Amal, as though I didn't even exist. "Amal," he said smoothly, a blend of charm and condescension in his tone. "Didn't expect to see you here tonight." Amal froze, her glass hovering in midair. Her eyes darted between him and me before she answered. "Lucas." The single word carried more than she intended. "What are you doing here?" "Enjoying the city," he replied with an infuriating grin. Then, to my utter disbelief, he reached out, clasped her hand, and added, "Why waste time with him? Let's dance first, then I'll show you what you're missing." The hum of conversation around us died. Amal tried to pull her hand free, but Lucas held on, his arrogance stoking a deep, dangerous heat in my chest. I rose slowly, the scrape of my chair loud in the silence. "Let go of her hand," I said, my voice calm but edged with steel. "You have 3 seconds." Lucas turned, smirk curling. "And if I don't?" The answer came instantly. A brutal snap tore through the stillness. Lucas crumpled to the floor, clutching his mangled hand, a cry of agony ripping from his throat. All eyes locked on us. Amal gasped, her face pale, torn between shock and fear. Diners froze mid-motion, utensils suspended in the air. "Magnus," she whispered shakily, grabbing my arm. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer her. I crouched so I could look Lucas directly in the eye. My voice was low enough for him alone. "This is only the beginning. You picked the wrong night and the wrong man." His face twisted in pain, but his glare was venomous. "You'll regret this," he hissed through clenched teeth. I straightened and looked at Amal, still seated, wide-eyed. "Get up," I said sharply. She hesitated, eyes flicking from me to Lucas. "Now!" I barked, my tone slicing through her hesitation. Her heels clicked against the floor as she rose, trailing behind me. Conversation slowly resumed in hushed whispers, curiosity buzzing through the room as we left. The drive home was suffocating, silence pressing in from all sides. Amal sat stiffly, hands clenched in her lap, mind clearly scrambling for an explanation. When we pulled into the garage, I killed the engine and turned toward her. "Talk," I said, my voice low but unyielding. She flinched, composure crumbling. "Magnus, I don't know what you expect me to say," she murmured, staring at her lap. "I want the truth," I said, leaning in. "Who is he? How long has this been happening?" Tears welled, but my sympathy was gone, burned out months ago. "It's complicated," she began. A sharp, humorless laugh escaped me before she could finish. "Confused?" I echoed, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Let me make this very clear. Either you come clean right now, or I'll uncover myself. And trust me, you won't like the way I handle it." Her posture sagged, the fight draining from her body. 6 months, she whispered, barely audible. It started 6 months ago. The admission hit me like a blow to the ribs. I had suspected for a long time, but hearing it aloud was still a punch I wasn't prepared for. I forced in a steady breath, keeping my expression controlled. And tonight, I asked evenly, what exactly was the point? Was this some performance to humiliate me in public? To rub it in my face? Her voice cracked. I didn't know he'd be there. Magnus. I swear. Stop. I cut in sharply. I saw how you looked at him. The way you froze the moment he spoke to you. You knew. She covered her face with trembling hands, sobs echoing in the enclosed space of the car. I stared straight ahead, my mind already shifting gears. I wanted the whole truth, but more than that, I needed a strategy. The next morning found me in my office, the Geneva skyline stretching across the glass behind me. My anger was no longer a wildfire. It cooled into something sharper, more deliberate. Betrayal was poison, but I refused to let it destroy me. If Amal and Lucas thought they could walk away without consequence, they were about to be proven wrong. I began with Lucas. A quick search revealed a perfectly curated image. Private jets, exotic getaways, expensive suits. But beneath the polish, the cracks were obvious. Failed startups, lawsuits, rumors of underhanded deals. Lucas was not invincible. I called in favors from trusted contacts in finance, people who thrived on pulling skeletons from closets. Within hours, I had his financial records in my hands. Risky investments, mounting debts, assets tied up in questionable ventures. He was living well beyond his means. It was enough to dismantle him entirely. But I wasn't finished. Amal was still going through the motions, pretending life was normal. While she played her part, I quietly built my case. Screenshots of messages, copies of emails, photographs of her and Lucas together. I locked it all away in an encrypted file. This wasn't revenge. It was leverage. If she tried to fight during the divorce, I'd have the ammunition ready. The final step was the spectacle. I had Lucas invited to an exclusive charity gala, the kind attended by Geneva's most influential figures. At the same time, I ensured an investigative journalist with a taste for scandal received a complete dossier on his financial crimes. By the end of that evening, Lucas's smiling face was splashed across front pages, paired with headlines detailing fraud, extortion, and his long history of exploiting wealthy women. His assets were frozen. Former allies scrambled to distance themselves. He disappeared from public view. Amal's downfall was quieter, but no less brutal. Gossip rippled through high society. Invitations stopped arriving. Her family, ashamed of publicity, cut ties. When we finally met in court, she looked like a faded version of the woman I'd married. Drawn features, tired eyes, shoulders heavy with humiliation. Magnus, she said softly as we stepped out of the courtroom. I know I hurt you, but was all this really necessary? I met her gaze without flinching. You made your choices. Choices come with consequences. Tears shimmered in her eyes, but she said nothing more. She simply turned and walked away. Months passed. The house that had once been a battlefield of silence now felt still, peaceful. I poured myself into my work, closing deals, expanding my company's reach across Europe. The sting of betrayal dulled over time, replaced by a sharp sense of clarity. At another charity event months later, I felt a light tap on my shoulder. Turning, I found a woman with an air of understated elegance. Mr. Adler, she greeted warmly. I'm Isabel Fortier. I've read about your work. It's impressive. Her wit and insight were a refreshing break from the shallow small talk I had grown used to. Hours slipped by in easy conversation. For the first time in years, something genuine stirred inside me, a reminder that beauty still existed beyond the wreckage. Later that night, standing on my balcony with the city lights glittering below, I reflected on how far I'd come. Betrayal had cut deep, but it had also reforged me into something stronger. Raising my glass toward the night sky, I murmured the words that had become my creed. Pain sharpens us. Strength shapes us. Then, with one last thought left hanging in the cool air, I turned to go inside. Betrayal can break you, but renewal rebuilds you.